So I wonder if that was a little nod to the Rise of Skywalker there. I thought that was kind of funny. Um, but that just again a little, I think a little Easter egg, a little nod, and a little bit of humor.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was a good scene. I like that. I immediately went back to Rise of Skywalker when I heard that for the first time. Um, some one that I enjoyed was when they were walking across the pipe between the two buildings, and you have Wrecker in the back, the biggest of the biggest, the biggest of them all. I'm not going to look down. I'm not going to look down. This is bad. I'm going to look. Oh God, I look down.
I'm gonna throw up. I'm feeling sick.
It just it just struck me as funny because there you have him doing all that. And what was it in the last episode? It was, I'm not scared of heights. I just have a problem with gravity.
Love that. Love
Uh,
it.
so this fits right in with that. And there were more comedic pieces in there, like when they're looking for when they're talking about all the knowledge that Echo had because he was hooked up to the computer. He had access to all of their knowledge as well, so he can he can get him a way out. And he's like, I know a good way out, but you ain't gonna like it. Yeah, and or the of course the one you mentioned with them, the droids start flying. It was great. Um, it was a lot of fun in this episode. There was a lot of nods in this episode too. Um, One of my favorite nods was actually in that scene we were just talking about, with her crossing the pipe, and they get about halfway across, and Anakin looks up because he's leading the way as always, and he looks up, and out come the battle droids from the door they're trying to cross the bridge to. And when they turn around, there's more battle droids coming from the other side, and you see Anakin just pull out and ignite his lightsaber. Loved that because to me, we were sitting there looking at Indiana Jones on a rope bridge with the natives coming across the bridge on both sides to get the stones back from the Temple of Doom, man.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
It was a great night. I thought that was awesome. That was so much fun. Of course, the comedic element you mentioned, of course, which was uh, you, it, I have a hard time not believing it was a nod to Rise of Skywalker, which was great. But then there was the fight with the Octoptera
Yeah.
droids,
Yeah.
which was fun at the end. And you have Anakin jumping on them and cutting it, slicing him with the lightsaber, slicing a leg off, and kind of just hanging onto it with his lightsaber jabbed inside. And it was really fun to watch. But to me, it reminded me exactly of that Clone Wars movie that was released, a full length feature film that was released when we first meet Ahsoka, and they're pretty much fighting these same droids in that episode. And Anakin's just kind of swinging from the gun and cutting the leg, and on top of it, jabbing his lightsaber into the top, and just easily just dispatching it. And to see him dispatch it with ease again, to me, was just a great time. And I know you saw the animated film in the theater, right, David?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
August 2008.
Did it jump out at you like
Oh,
that as well, or?
oh, definitely, definitely. When I saw those being sent over to where the Politics live, absolutely. I enjoyed the Clone Wars movie. I know we've talked about it before that it's clear they put, I guess, probably what, 3 episodes together and stuff like that. But now when you watch them in chronological order, you can really see, Admiral Trench and his blockade of Christophsis, that planet, and then as it flows further into the Clone Wars movie. But I loved watching Anakin, fly around on the top of those things in that movie back, gosh, 12 years ago now. And here we are 12 years later seeing them again. Very cool to see them. Not just the smaller battle droids or the B2s, right? The super battle droids, but getting to see these things go down is pretty sweet. I guess another comedic element too was it Wrecker that he threw one of them, Hunter, or one of them up onto it, and they just were not as skilled or right. They're just
Yep.
hanging on and flying around, and they did it, but just not as gracefully and as powerful as Anakin did it. But absolutely thought about the Clone Wars movie from 2008. The episode guide also mentions that we see them in Revenge of the Sith as well, live action. So they are pretty sweet looking there too.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And that scene actually gives us one of my favorite quotes from the episode, which is Hunter, after watching Anakin dispose of it so easily, makes a statement, "It's pretty hard to compete with the Jedi."
Yes, just phone it in, man. You're not going to compete with Anakin on that stuff.
No, there is no competing with Anakin on that stuff. Never has been, never will be. It's just very interesting to go through. So, I'd be dismiss if we didn't hit on one more thing before we start wrapping up. And of course, and you kind of mentioned it already, which was Rex's speech to the Politics, because when they make their escape on the Keeradaks and they fly away, they end up back at the Politek village, and immediately the Politiks are upset that they're there, because when they arrive, they're shooting down droids and that were chasing them, and one droid escapes, and the Politek chieftain comes out, and you have Tech translating, and he basically says, they lied. You brought the war to our doorstep. You said you wouldn't. You weren't. And before Anakin could answer and respond, Rex kind of steps up. He's like, yes, we did. But we didn't bring the war here. Look at what the Separatists and what Tambor has done to one of our people. This is just this. They're the ones who have brought the war to your planet. They're the ones they're the bad guys, essentially. And he gives this very powerful and passionate speech, which, even though he's working through a translator, was very well represented to the Poltec chieftain. And he could sense that passion. He could sense that drive, even though I've worked with translators before growing up overseas, like I did. So it's one thing to just have somebody standing there repeating what you say, but for them to actually hear what you're saying, even though they can't understand it, but to hear your passion and everything in your words, that they later get translated, because the translator's not going to say it with the same passion or energy that you do. So if you could communicate your passion and your passion for what's being said just through the feels, you're going to make a difference. And then I think that made a huge impact on the Poltec chieftain. What do you think, David?
Well, absolutely. I love that you have this background from living overseas and being multilingual. I am not. Well, maybe I am. I speak English and I speak Star Wars, so I guess I might be multilingual. But then you're like trilingual.
Trilingual.
You're trilingual then.
Quadlingual. If you include Star Trek.
Okay, sorry. Well, there you go. There's 4: Star Trek, Star Wars, Spanish, and English. But no, and I love that scene, and there's no question, being able to actually do it and speak in someone's home language, native language, is critical. Like you said, we would be remiss to not discuss that, and I love how Rex makes the plea to them, and something that I had said earlier tonight was, that quote. I saw a psychologist put it at the end of every one of his emails after his address and so on, and I'm paraphrasing it. I'm not saying it exactly as he had it, but this is what it is paraphrased. That is, if and this is kind of like what Rex is saying. If you don't take an interest in politics, it'll soon take an interest in you. And that's really what I felt like Rex was saying is that, you can try to stay neutral in this, but, Born, the Techno Union and the Separatists, they're going to come and take something from you soon enough, especially if you have some kind of resource that they want. We've seen this in other arcs within the Clone Wars where people want to stay neutral, but ultimately get pulled into it. Unfortunately. But I do like the message of not only, hey, you might think we're bad guys, but here's what these people do. Rex lays that out really well, and he conveys, hey, let's work together. Let's fight these people off, at least when we're both here, because they're going to come and mess with you anyways. And so yeah, it's so deep on so many levels, from speaking the native language to the issue of war, trying to avoid war, and sometimes not being able to avoid it.
Yep. Well said. Well said. Well said. All right. So with that, we are going to take one more break. And when we come back, we will do our final thoughts and wrap up this week's episode. Welcome back to Star Wars Reactions, everybody. We've been discussing the episode on the Wings of Keeradaks. And we go ahead and wrap up with our final thoughts here. David, you want to go ahead and kick off our final thoughts?
Sure. As a third part in this arc, absolutely enjoyed it. Things that I've brought up in our coverage of Star Wars Rebels and Star Wars Resistance is the first and foremost question, like, do I care about these characters? I do. I care about the Bad Batch after the first two episodes. After the first episode, they're putting their life on the line. What did Hunter say? What suicide mission are you going to send us on now, Commander Cody and Captain Rex? And they're doing this, and they're able to save Echo. So I care about these characters, and something that we do see, particularly in that nod to the Temple of Doom, is that there's real peril here. We know Anakin's going to be all right because we see him in Revenge of the Sith, but we could lose one of the members of the Bad Batch or Echo. And so that brought a real tension, and it speaks back to what we said. It was 21 minutes long, but boy, oh boy, I didn't know the time. I was riveted. And I love it. I've enjoyed the first two episodes. I love this one, and just as I was mentioning just before the little break there, there's action sequences, there's emotional moments, but there's deep underlying issues here about war, being injured, being disfigured, having your humanity stripped from you, trying to avoid war, and trying to avoid politics, and how it's going to come to your doorstep. Because there's some bad people out there. And so I was excited to see how the clones and the Bad Batch, I guess, and Anakin work together with the Politics, the native people, to defeat at least that big, huge wave of droids and so forth from Wat Tambor. So that was nice to see. And then, of course, it leaves me excited for the fourth episode to see first and foremost how Echo turns out here, and also because of that clip we've seen, I'm really curious to see more of Mace and Obi-Wan battling battle droids. I never get tired of seeing that. So yeah, overall wonderful episode. Loved covering it, and so yeah. What are your thoughts?
Well, I really enjoyed this episode. It was. Like I said, it didn't feel like it was only a 20-minute episode. It felt full. It felt enjoyable. At the end of it, I was satisfied with what I had seen. A lot of great stuff, a lot of great action, a lot of great humor. But to me, I think what got to me the most was the underlying deepness of the episode with Echo. Seeing how he was how his humanity was and personality and who he was trying to research back almost immediately, and then having that moment at the end where he's not okay.